Alrighty, good morning. Good morning. Happy Tuesday. I hope everyone enjoyed some of the questions and things that were put into the group yesterday. We did managing crisis situations on yesterday, and today we are going to be going over some of those ethical questions. There are crisis questions as well that comes along the lines of ethics, so sometimes they are kind of like one in the same with each other. But today we are going to talk about how to find the best answer, the best response to some of these ethical questions. But first things first, I want everyone to listen to this video all the way to the end because I have a message for some of my followers and some of my new followers at the end, and I want everyone to be able to hear this. But first things first, let's get to this. This domain consists of these things that you see right in front of you. If it's too much to read, don't read. Just listen to the sound of my voice. So one of the first things that they talk about in the ethics domain is going to be the confidentiality, right? That is just what it says, what we should be telling other people and what we should not be. Like, what are we bound to tell other people in situations such as if they want to hurt themselves or hurt somebody else, right? Confidentiality. We have a full grasp of that. I hope that we do. And if not, let me know and we can take a deeper dive into it. Another thing, dual relationships and boundary issues. You will see some things about dual relationships, boundary issues, and some of these questions that might come up. Dual relationships are like what? You can't be sitting there taking your client out to dinner. You can't be showing up to your client's wedding. Dual relationship, not going to happen. Goes against ethics, right? But not all dual relationships are bad. All of them are not bad. Some of them are unavoidable. You will see questions like that. You will see a question that says something like, oh, in a rural community or a small knit community or something like that. And then I've had this one question that said that like your next door neighbor or something wanted therapy with you and he was suicidal. But it was a small town. So it was a first question and it said, what do you do first? One of the responses was refer him to a therapist in like a 20-mile radius or something. Don't stray from it. Your response needs to be assess the situation. He said he was suicidal. It's a very, very small town. 9 times out of 10, the next therapist is 20, 30 miles away, and that's okay. These are things that you talk about your client with in therapy. I've had a question that talks about a therapist and a client going to the same gym together in a small town. All you're going to do is look for a response that says discuss the boundary issues in session with that client. That is it. Dual relationships are not all bad. Keep that in mind. Gift giving. This will also come up. Are you allowed to accept gifts from your client? Yes, no, depending on the monetary value of it, depending on how much it is. If you see a question that says a real expensive gift, you are going to have to decline it. But when it paves way to cultural, like a client made a dish for you, or they bought you a flower, or they sent you a journal, then yes, you are going to accept a gift, and then you're going to talk about like maybe some clinical implications that's going to follow with it. Not all gift giving is bad gift giving. Pay attention to that. And then, of course, you have your informed consent. That's all the information. It's going to cover the rest of all this other stuff that's going to follow with it, right? Especially the dual relationships, confidentiality, mandated reporting. You are, of course, going to talk about that with your client. What you are allowed to report, what stays in the therapy room, right? And then, of course, that professional competence piece is so important. This is your education. This is your training. If you know that you are not competent enough to work with this client, you need to do what? You got to refer out, seek consultation, continue education. You will see many questions that will come up like that. And I will try to find my best to find some. I have some at the end of this, but I don't think they really go into depth about that, but I can definitely do a video for that too. Again, cultural sensitivity and non-discrimination. I cannot say this enough. You get a vignette that's talking about diversity, something that's cultural. You have to pay attention to that. You cannot ignore a cultural piece in a question that is asking you about a client that is from a different ethnic background than you. Pay attention to it. And I think I go deeper into that when I talk about it. But yes, here it is again. I can't say this enough. Safety is a must. It does not matter what domain. Safety always comes first. The client's welfare is the first thing that you need to pay attention to. But see, in this domain, 3 of the things that you have to take into account to safety is going to be that confidentiality piece, protecting that client. You get a client that's telling you, let's say like a teenager, she's let's say 16, 17 years old, and she drinks and she smokes. Are you going to maintain confidentiality, or are you going to tell her parents? You're only going to tell her parents if it's a risk, if it's something dangerous. Things like that, you keep confidential. You do not have to report it, right? Autonomy. All of our clients have the right to autonomy. Please don't choose a response that tells you, give advice, tell the client to do this. I've had a vignette that says that there was a girl that wanted an abortion. One of the responses was like, oh, tell her that you don't believe in abortions and she shouldn't do it. Your clients have the right to autonomy. If your client wants to get an abortion, she gets to have an abortion. Then you're just going to work her through the process that's just going to come after. That's it. That's all. Safety, I've been drilling this in your head. Abuse, suicidal ideation, homicidal threats, all of this. You are legally and ethically obligated to report when there is a risk of harm to your client, when there is a risk of harm to someone else that your client is talking about. This is when you break confidentiality. At that moment, confidentiality is not protected. This is what I had to do because ethics is so boring to me. And it may not be boring to everybody else, but it's boring to me. I read the Code of Ethics, and when I read the Code of Ethics, it teaches you so much more. But then another thing that teaches you is looking at questions for ethics. Looking at questions for ethics also teaches you, because then you get to see the rationale behind why the answer is what it is. But I definitely read the Code of Ethics probably about 2 or 3 times just to make sure I had a clear and understanding of what it actually means in order for me to apply it when it comes to certain questions. Here it is again. When in doubt, this is what I had to learn how to do. You're always going to start with safety first, whether if it's with your client or if your client is saying that they want to hurt somebody else. If there is nothing that has to do with like a huge major thing about safety or something like that, and then it comes down the lines of you having to report, you will have to follow the law. You're going to have to know when you need to be reporting something that your client is telling you. Again, follow your code of ethics. Read your code of ethics. Always, always, always maintain professional boundaries. This is one of the things that is in this domain is about you maintaining those professional boundaries, because you should not be giving advice. You should not be telling them what your beliefs are, what you think that you should do or whatever. We are not opinionated. We don't do that. We may work them through situations, weigh pros and cons of how they see things, but we do not give advice. And 9 times out of 10, when it comes to something that's ethical and legal, you're going to document. You may see an answer that be like, and document accordingly. 9 times out of 10, that is going to be the right answer, because then you have to document what just occurred, why you had to do what you needed to do, and that is going to let you know, hey, okay, well, I did this, I did what I was supposed to do, and now you have to document so that nothing comes back to you that you did something wrong, right? Here we are again. These red flags. The red flags be flagging. If I don't know nothing else, if y'all don't gather nothing else from this, look for those red flags. I am really big on avoiding responses that's telling you to ignore a red flag, such as that confidentiality. When it comes to crisis situations, I talked about this in the video of managing crisis. You do not choose a response that has little less to nothing than what you know that you should be doing. Wait until the next session. Let the client bring it up later. Avoid those responses. If you got 3 different responses that says all 3 of those things that are on this camera right now, you know that other answer has got to be right, because those 3 responses are ignoring the red flag. Right? Practicing outside your scope of competence. Know when it's time for you to refer out, seek supervision, or maintain continuing education when it comes to certain things. You get a vignette that says, my client wants me to do hypnosis with them. There's this question. My client wanted them to do hypnosis with them, but I didn't know anything about hypnosis, but I had watched a video about it. And the answer responses was like, oh, okay, do hypnosis and then learn how to do it on the way. Absolutely not. That goes against ethics. You don't know how to do hypnosis. So your response better be to do what? Refer out, because it is beyond your scope of competence. You cannot sit there and be trying to do all these trainings and all these experiments on these clients and you don't know what you're doing. Refer them out. But there are certain questions that are worded differently that will let you know when it's time for you to seek supervision, and also when it's time for you to read a book. There's this one question about there's this Asian family that this client was working with. The therapist took a class on African Americans, how to work with African Americans. And the question was something about how should the therapist proceed. And then one of the things was work with the client, because even an African American class is something that is going to be across the board. You know what you're doing. But the correct answer response was take a class on Asian American culture. So you will know when it's you'll see it. Once you get this whole thing down about looking for the red flags, you'll know when the answer is the best answer and which one is there to see. It's kind of hard for me to kind of talk through without having to show it to you. But yeah, you will know when you see a question, those red flags is flagging. Pay attention to those red flags. Again, here it is, culturally sensitive and non-judgmental. Acknowledge diversity. You have to acknowledge that client's difference with you. If it is telling you in a vignette that you are this white therapist or black therapist working with this Asian American, working with this Latino or whatever, you got to acknowledge it. Anything about culture, 9 times out of 10, their response needs to include a cultural response. Cultural questions are answered with a cultural response. Keep that in mind. Do not impose personal values on clients. You have to respect that. They have autonomy. Respect religious, sexual orientation, gender identity. You have to respect that. Do not ignore it. Avoid responses that have you ignoring these certain things. 9 times out of 10, that answer is incorrect if they ignore the diversity or the cultural component of that question. So this is what I found. I have learned, and I took this from AATBS and Jerry Grossman. I had to take a quick run through it. I'm like, I know I remember how to identify these. So most of the best answers that I found, they always include something about safety, the code of ethics, following the law, maintaining confidentiality, protecting that client, as well as when it comes to you having to break confidentiality. Avoiding dual relationships. Don't ever choose a response that has you having coffee or cake with your client. Don't ever choose a response that says that. Respecting cultural differences. You get a vignette that says that there is a white American working with this black client. One of the answers that always comes up is that therapist needs to address her white privilege with that black client. That is across the board. If you do not believe me, try to look it up. I have done some of all kinds of questions, and when I see the question white American, African American client, white therapist must first acknowledge her white privilege across the board. Referring when out of scope. You already know that. I've had multiple questions. If you don't have that scope of competence, refer them out. Don't mean you're not trying to do hypnosis with a client and you ain't never did hypnosis before. Document. That is one of the biggest things of one of these ethical questions. They always talk about documenting decisions that has been made. Pay attention to that. Pay attention to it. These are your things that you need to be looking for. If anything looks like it's a red flag, pay attention to that red flag. Do not ignore that red flag. So let's do some few questions here. You are working with a client who is undocumented. During a session, the client expresses fear about seeking legal help because of their immigration status. They ask if you'll report their status. And I did this because some reason I'm getting this feeling that they're going to be throwing some of these kind of questions about about immigration and stuff on the exam, just like they did COVID-19. So that's why I've been finding these questions. I'm like, okay, well, ChatGPT, be good to me today and see if you can put these questions in a way that I can explain it better. So this question is, what is your best ethical response? When it says best ethical response, it is the most immediate response that you're going to have to give to this client, because what's happening in this vignette seems to be an emergency, because we see the word fear that is written up there, right? What is the best ethical response? A says, assure them you will not report and continue therapy. That's not an ethical response, now is it? Because when it comes to something that's ethical, ethic things needs to be taken care of before you move on to anything that is clinical. Do not move on to anything clinical without addressing the ethics first. B says say nothing and avoid the topic to protect yourself legally. Here it is again with that say nothing. That's you ignoring the red flags in the vignette. B is ignoring the red flags that is written in this vignette, and we cannot ignore red flags. D says refer them to ICE or immigration authorities for help. Here is the thing. D is doing what? Breaking confidentiality. That's what D is doing. Right? C says inform them of the limits of confidentiality and the immigration status is not reportable unless tied to a reportable defense. Now, see, here's something that I don't really know about the immigration and everything, but the way that this question is like asked and even the responses and stuff is, D tells me that you're breaking confidentiality. Even though they may be immigrants does not mean that they do not have confidentiality in therapy. I'm not like, I don't know if we should be calling ICE or anything like that. I can look deeper into these kind of questions and see how they should be answered and see what the laws say about it. But as far as I'm concerned, they still have confidentiality. As far as I'm concerned, I will look into it. I will get some information on it and see. See, I'm looking and I'm just like reading it again. Inform them of the limits of confidentiality and that immigration status is not reportable unless tied to a reportable offense. Like, I don't know. I will look deeper into this question. I just wanted to put it on here just to see like what it would be like. So don't look too far into this. Let me do some research on it and I will get back to you all. A 17-year-old client confides during therapy that their stepfather has been emotionally abusive and has started entering their room at night. They say he hasn't touched me, but I feel unsafe. The client begs you not to tell anyone. And I got this question off Quizlet, so I'm sure it came from Jerry Grossman. It's very familiar sounding to me. What is your best ethical response? Again, like this is an emergency, right? We got some red flags up there in this question. He's emotionally abusive, first thing. Then if it was another question, we'll be like, okay, well then maybe we need to assess if there's anything else going on, the risk for safety, right? He's entering her room at night. Why is a stepfather entering a 17-year-old's room at night? So again, red flag. He hasn't touched her, but she feels unsafe. We need to stop this in its tracks right now, right? A says maintain confidentiality since there is no evidence of physical abuse. Right then and there, A tells me that is us ignoring the red flag if we pick A. A is ignoring the red flag that a stepfather is entering a girl's room at nighttime. For what? For what? Right? C says encourage the client to speak with their mother first. Why are we doing that? Because again, C doesn't do anything but ignore the red flag. Avoid questions that says wait. Anything that has to do with waiting, anything that has to do with holding off on something, that's you ignoring the red flag, and you can't do that. D says wait until the next session to gather more information. That's us again, if we choose D, ignoring the red flag and waiting for something else to happen. No, we cannot wait for anything else to happen, which is why we have to do B, report the situation to Child Protective Services. And even though it's not information in here that he has been touching her, we still have red flags that are in there, which is that stepfather coming into that room at night and she feels unsafe. There's a reason why she's begging you not to tell somebody about it. There it is. The correct answer is B. Report the situation to Child Protective Services. Alrighty, and then this question here. You are treating a client with PTSD. During the third session, the client brings you a handmade gift and says, I made this to thank you. It's how I express myself. It has no significant monetary value, right? So let's take a look at that. But you sense accepting it might deepen the client's emotional attachment. Okay, so here's the thing. They put this emotional attachment in here to kind of like say like, oh, if I do accept the gift, then I think that the client will be much more attached to me, right? It's a handmade gift, people. He just said he wanted to do it just to say thank you. Not all gift giving is terrible gift giving, right? It's looking at it from a standpoint when they say no significant monetary value. That is what you go off of. A says accept a gift to validate the client's emotional expression. A is too far out there. It's too vague, because then A could tell us that, oh, if this client walked in here with $500, then I got to accept it just to validate their feelings. Absolutely not. We do not accept gifts of money, especially $500. No, that's absurd. B says decline the gift to avoid dual relationships. There is no dual relationship that's being present by accepting a gift. So B is automatically out. D says tell the client they cannot give you anything during therapy. That's not true. They can give you a gift. They can attempt to give you a gift, but don't say like they cannot give you anything during therapy. That doesn't make any sense. So D would be out. C says accept the gift and document the reasoning in clinical context. Here's the thing when it comes to gift giving. There is, I've had a few questions that talked about, just like they'll say, no monetary value. I've also have questions where it's a cultural thing, where a cultural client or a cultural family will do something for you to say thank you, and then the only thing you're going to do is, address the cultural aspect behind it, accept the gift, and then document it. I had this question that was talking about, I can't remember what culture the client was from, but the client bought the therapist a dish of food, made her a dish of food to say thank you. And the response was, you accept the dish of food, explore the cultural context behind it, and then you document it. Not all gift giving is bad gift giving, but no, we're not accepting $500, $300. No, we're not accepting that. No monetary value. Can you accept a plant? Absolutely, you can. Yes, but we're not accepting expensive artwork. I had a question that talked about that as well. So again, not all gift giving is bad. Make sure you pay attention to the question, how the question is worded. Look for no significant monetary value. That's typically going to lead you to your best answer. If it's anything about an expensive gift, 9 times out of 10, you're going to decline the gift, if that makes sense. Alrighty, so I told everyone to stay until the end so that I can share these few words of encouragement with you. If you have worked with me one-on-one, I have told each and every one of you, I do not believe in a coincidence. A coincidence means it's just like, oh, there's no reasoning or purpose behind it. No, this was done on purpose. I truly believe that I have crossed paths with each and every one of you for a purpose. You have come into my life and taught me so many things, and I hope that I am doing the same thing for you. We cross paths for a reason. I cannot stress that enough. God does everything on purpose. He is the one that is leading me on this mission, and I keep saying that, like, if everybody knows, I'm a very spiritual person. He sent me on this mission, and I am just fulfilling this mission every single day with each and every one of you. I treat each and every one of you just like those first and next questions. First, I want you to pass the first time. And if you did not make it the first time, then the next thing is for you to pass. That is how I've been treating this. That is how I've been looking at this. God have been, he's been laying a lot of these words and stuff on my mind and on my heart. And I just wanted to just extend this to you all and let you all know. The song of the day today is Another One by Travis Green and Ford City. If you listen to them, comment and let me know one of your favorite songs by them, and I can listen to it. I'll let you all know what some of my favorite songs by Travis Green is, but this song speaks like volumes over me, and as I was listening to it this morning, it started to minister to me. The first thing that he says is, God does everything on purpose. He does everything on purpose. This is no coincidence that we cross paths. And if you believe that one of the first miracles, one of the first gifts that was given to you was crossing paths with me, then be prepared, because there is another one that is on the way.